This is Life Transformation Radio. Prepare to engage. Seatbelt activated. Download initiated. Your quantum journey of transformation begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. Hi, I'm Rob Actis, best-selling author of The Law of Action, voice actor, business mindset coach, the podcast whisperer, and Mr. Action himself here at Life Transformation Radio. We are committed to share more about real life, love, the power of positivity, romance, and of course, laughter. We care about helping others find their internal drive and purpose. We celebrate life's challenges and, of course, overcoming them. On the show, my guests are amazing people who are forces for the good in the world around them and live a life of transformation. And my guest today does just that. Today, Mariette Frey and I discuss how important it is to take time to listen to your own body to make sure you're taking care of what it needs. So if you want to learn to listen to your body more and understand that you need to pay attention when the universe is trying to get your attention, this is the show for you. She is a moving coach. Yeah, we got to talk about that. Which combines her experience as a certified life coach, certified professional organizer, and personal finance coach, and moved 18 times in the last 22 years, 5 times across the country, and she helps people make smarter moves when pursuing their dreams. Mariette, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, first of all, glad to have you here. And I'm really excited about this because I've never met a moving coach. And I think that moving is one of the most stressful times in anyone's life. And it's a very transformative period of your life because you're gonna declutter and get rid of a lot of stuff in your life. And with stuff is energy.
Absolutely. Tons of energy. Whether you're bringing it into a house, taking it away from a house, it is everywhere for sure.
Absolutely. And then you're also an organizer, which is also about moving energy. Yeah. And then you're personal finance coach, which is also about energy. So there's a lot of movement in your world. And I think it's so important what you've created because so many people have heart attacks and strokes and commit suicide for moving clutter and finance. So I really think it's cool that you've combined those 3 together and created you as your moving finance and organizational coach.
Thank you. Yeah, it actually kind of stemmed from being the coach that I wish I had when I was making some of those moves, because I grew up in a town just outside of Chicago that had kind of a rubber band radius around my grandparents. I don't know if your family was like that, where like everybody kind of stayed in the same place. Nobody moved away. It was like blasphemy if you were like, I'm going to move an hour away. They were like, what? So we all just kind of stayed really tight. So I wanted to move to California and I moved, but I had no one to talk to about it. So, This kind of was born.
You created it. So, they talk about the shoemaker that doesn't have any good shoes, or the web developer that has no website. And, with all the things in life, it's all about paying attention to the little things. And in your instance, and it's happened to me as well, is that when you don't pay attention to the little bumps and nods by the universe, that you need to slow down, you need to regroup, reframe, rethink how you're living your life, it will give you just these little pats on the back and tap on the shoulder and then slap on the face and then a 2x4 across your forehead. Yeah, exactly. Oh. And that's really what happened to you.
Yeah, ironically, I was working a full-time job, but I was also getting my coaching business off the ground. And in the middle of that, ironically, I was moving, right? This is what I do. I love moving. I built a house last year. So I had all these different things swirling. In hindsight,
none of those things are stressful. None of those things are stressful.
No. Well, they say moving is stressful, or is second only to divorce as far as stress goes. So that's like putting it in perspective, how stressful it can be, especially if
and if a full-time job is pretty darn stressful, in addition to being entrepreneurial and having that.
Oh yeah. Wow. And throw travel. My team covers 4 states. So I was on a plane as well. So I'm packing at night, waking up in the morning, getting up really early, trying to like organize things. Like I said, move energy out. There was a lot that needed to be moved out. Some was in a storage bin, down the streets. I mean, it was a mess. There's all kinds of stuff.
It's amazing to me how we tend to accumulate stuff and we haven't touched that stuff for years and we still won't let it go. And it's funny because...
And pay to move it.
And pay to move it, which is crazy. But the funny thing is about that is that a long time ago, I had a very dear friend and she was from Australia. And she moved here and she could carry everything she owned in like a couple bags. And in the United States, we have storage everywhere. We're like one of the only countries in the world that has all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very interesting condition for Americans because we're freaks. Other people don't do what we do in any way, shape, or form.
Well, and the attachment that people have to certain things blows my mind too. And people will hire me to come out and transform their space, but they don't want to get rid of anything. Like, oh, my Aunt Mildred gave that to me. And I'm like, do you know where she got it? Is this a family heirloom or did she buy it at a garage sale, didn't want it anymore and give it to you? Right?
Yeah.
You never know. It's crazy.
I got COVID last year and I was laying in bed and I really thought I was going to die. I was really sick. And I got a blood clot at the same time. So I was really sick and I was down. And I was thinking to myself at times, man, if I die, and I got a 23-year-old daughter, and you heard from a previous podcast, and I'm thinking to myself, man, if I die and I leave my daughter with all this crap in the garage, what a shitty thing to do. And I'm like, so I purged, man. When I finally got well, it took a couple months to get better. And I'm still purging. It's been a year and I don't buy anything anymore. I don't want anything. What do you want for Christmas? Nothing.
Yep. Experiences.
Just depleting. Yeah. I just want to deplete. I don't want anything because it just sucks the life out of you.
Yeah, I call it the energy vampire because people will move, they'll purge all these things and they move into a new house and they buy all new things. And so then they're like 3-4 years later when they move, because the average person moves about 11 times, they say, 11.7, which I don't know what constitutes as a 0.7 of a move, but I will say that even just 2 or 3 moves, you accumulate so much stuff. And then you end up throwing it into places that don't serve you. And then you walk into a room and you're like, oh, I can't stand this room. I don't know why though, and it's just got stuff everywhere.
Yeah,
so
it's quite fascinating and it does take its toll. Now we talk about transformation. So you have had transformation. We're going to talk about what just recently happened to you, but let's talk about how you got to where you are and the little transformations of your life to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, so I think early on in the years, because these 18 moves have come over 22 years, right? I think early on, I was just exploring the country. I wanted to get out of Chicago. I wanted to explore something new. And instead of just visiting, I just moved there, right? So we didn't have a ton on the internet at the time, not to age myself, but I mean, those, travel blogs weren't around. There was a lot of things that you just kind of had to go there to see it. So
you had these things called paper maps. Remember the maps or the books?
Still don't know how to use one.
God. Yeah, I don't either.
I know.
We just went on a trip this weekend and I was so fascinated. It tells you I'm just fascinated by technology. I love it, but I tend to get down to the nitty gritty. I'm like, it's amazing to me how they know traffic alert up front, 5-minute delay, and they know the exact time you're going to get there. And it's just it's amazing because we didn't used to have that back in the olden days. We had maps.
You had to rely on like exit numbers. Like I couldn't tell you what exit number I live on now, but we knew that back then. It's crazy.
I know. So 18 times. So you started out, so where did they start from college?
Yep. So right after I graduated college, I went into corporate America like a lot of people do. And I was interviewing people. At the time, I was a recruiter, and I was interviewing people west of the Mississippi. And we were trying to build a field sales force. And I would talk to these people. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. That place sounds awesome. This place sounds awesome. And when I got to the San Diego rep that I wanted to hire, I wanted that job because I wanted to move to San Diego. And he just had the best book of business. And I was like, oh, that's killing me. I'm like, I've got to figure out how to go there, and how to move there. So I got really intentional about it. And I had a lease that was coming up, and I decided to move home, which was kind of against all the rules. Like when you're trying to be cool and just out of college, like you don't move back home. That was, a faux pas. But,
unless it's 2022, then everybody moves back
everybody
home.
lives
Exactly.
home. I know. I would love to go back home now and stop adulting.
Yeah.
It
gets old after a while. Adulting is just,
I know. And you got to pivot with purpose and
exactly.
Exactly. I know. Well, I mean, I think a lot of these early moves too, when I was transitioning, I was thinking that it was going to be a fresh start and I was going to be transforming. And really it was just a transition because everywhere you go, there you are,
right, exactly.
It's funny, but it's true because I don't know, whatever you haven't dealt with in your body, it will eventually come up. And you've experienced this with, your health challenges. I certainly can talk more about my health challenges that I wasn't paying attention to, but that little nudge, that little pat on the back, that quickly can escalate if you don't take care of it.
Yeah. So you got to San Diego, and then, so tell me just the transformation that that occurred over that time. And then we'll talk about you not paying attention.
Oh yeah. That's a big one. So there were a couple different things. I ended up going back. So I left that company and I ended up going back to, back to them in a different capacity, which was really cool. And we were building out this field sales force. And I ended up having the opportunity to go to San Francisco. I never had been there either. I visited once and I was like, yeah, let's do it. That turned into moving to New York City with an opportunity. Then I moved back to Chicago for an opportunity. So all of these different transformations or transitions were really trying to take another job. And people would come to me and be like, gosh, how did you decide that? How did you figure out whether you wanted to go? And I was like, I don't know. I just kind of looked at, my finances, looked at the offers, looked at my, my body and how I was feeling and all these things. And little by little, I started coming up with like this, I don't know, like a routine, like, okay, you tell me about the offer. Tell me if this makes sense. And then I'd go through my little checklist. I'm like, okay, how do I feel? Do I want to pack up all my stuff? Do I want it? Because it really does become something that like you get used to, but moving sucks. Like it never gets easier, even after 18 times,
No.
It's just different. It's just a different experience each time with different obstacles and stuff. So I think really I got to a point where I was like, this is silly. Like some of these moves have been stupid. They sounded great on paper, but it really wasn't until I took a step back and said, okay, what's my end game? Like, what do I really, really want out of life? And like, now I'm getting older, right? I don't have kids. I'm not married. I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out because I can't set roots if I don't ever settle down.
Right.
So that's kind of where this all started. In my coaching practice, what was fun about it is that I did this infograph. Do you know what that is?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Like little map. And I was trying to map out all the places that I had lived. And I kept hearing like that little voice saying like, oh, you should put Charlotte on there. And I was like, oh, weird. My cousins live there. That's probably why I should put that on there. And then lo and behold, like not even joking, Rob, 6 months later, an opportunity came up in Charlotte and I was like, I got to take it. So I did.
That's so cool.
So yeah, I was going to say listening to your body.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, what's amazing is that with intention, you moved to all these places. And I was just curious, the different places you moved to, did you know you were going to the next place or did you kind of like just intentionally move where you wanted to go?
A little bit of both. I think that I'm really a big fan of the law of attraction. I think we've talked about that before. And I think that when you put intentions out into the world, it's not your job to make them happen. It's the universe's job to make it happen. It's whatever that energy is that says, you know what, this is your purpose. This is what you need to serve. This is your next move. But I think inherently you have to listen at some point to your body and to what the signs are telling you. Are you a big signs guy?
I am. So, the law of action, the book that I wrote, is the missing link of the law of attraction, because you just said something about the law of attraction. You just have to intentionalize it and don't do anything, but you have to be in motion. Right. You have to be in movement. You have to have momentum, because you can want and dream and hope, but if you don't take one foot in front of the other and take action, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No.
And I think that was some of the conversations I had, what do you want to, where do you want to be? I wanted to be somewhere warm. What do you want to be doing? I want to be serving people in a way that, I wish I had somebody help me. What do you, where do you see that going? I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. But I kind of knew those things. And so when the opportunity came up, I kind of looked at everything that I typically look at, and I was like, you know what? I can't see a reason not to go. And you know what the other thing is, you mentioned action. It was easy. How when you're in a position, you want something so bad, but everything is fighting you. That's another sign that you got to listen to.
Those are signs. If you're surrounded by friction, that's your team, your guardians of the universe, your team, your supporting team, that we're trying to get your attention. We're trying to let you know. And that was in relationships. I mean, I know people that are in relationships right now, and there's friction every single day. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how do you even function? Yeah. And why do you? I love him. How much do you love yourself?
Right.
I don't like friction. I tend to be very flowy. So we went away for the weekend this weekend, and I saw my mom, who's 94 years old.
Aww.
And when you drive on a road trip, it was just easy. We were running late, brought a friend with us, my wife, and they were running late, and I'm like, you know what? It's perfect. It's just perfect. We're going to get there when we get there. So I wanted to get to bed at 9:00, and they got done with all their girls' stuff at 9:00, and then they were trying on clothes, and then we had to go to Walmart, and then she forgot something, so we had to drive back, and it's 11:30 and 12:30, and still there's all this activity, and I wanted to leave at 4 because I wanted to get there early because we were going to Los Angeles. And I'm like, and it was perfect because I just let it go. There was no drama about it. There was no, people get so agitated and fired up, and they want to control the world around them. And we didn't. So went to Walmart, got my little beef sticks. I was happy. Got some nice beverages to drink while we're driving, and we went. And people are crazy on the road, and I just put myself in my bliss bubble. I have lots of great music. I have my very dear friend, my wife, in the car. We're laughing and having a great time. People are driving crazy on the road, just crazy on the road, and it's just just moving through, just doing my thing, because life is so short, and at any moment it can change.
You miss the magic if you don't stop and let it flow.
Absolutely. You can miss the magic. You don't get to stop at the great ball of twine if you're on a time crunch, But when I talk about that, your life can change any moment. As you know, you listen to my daughter's podcast. Yep. Our life changed forever. 2013. 14 years old, and just like that. So you really want to live every day like you want to be alive, and you wanted to pay attention to what the universe is saying. And you've been working your butt off. You're working full time. You're starting a podcast. Yeah. You've got your coaching. A lot of stuff, and you just had, a real upset. And then now you're the car accident. That was the most recent, but you had your instance where your life changed. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I built a house last year and I moved from a rental into my house. Okay. And that was in January. So January 2nd, as if the holidays aren't stressful enough, right? I decided to throw a move in there. And since January, I had gotten promoted at the same time. So very excited about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Traveling all over. I'm on a plane every single week. I get to go to some really cool events with some really cool people. And so little by little, one thing would happen. I originally, I remember it started, I got very nauseous, just randomly, and I was like, and I don't drink very much. I was like, I don't know, I might be dehydrated. So I grabbed some water, and that goes away. A couple weeks later, I have my vision's a little blurry. Can't, I'm like, okay, I'm tired. My eyes are tired. Again, dehydrated. Little by little, all these signs were starting to kind of filter in. And even what's even funnier is a friend of mine, her name is Nadine Cherry. I should introduce you to, you would love her. She does meditation practices all over for big companies. And she's really super cool. Yeah, she's awesome. Just her energy will just light you on fire. And we met up for coffee. We literally both had like 40 minutes total, we're like, we're going to make this happen. We're going to meet downtown Chicago. We're going to do this. So we meet and she just, she always kind of starts off, her energy is so calming that even just talking to her, I wanted to cry. And I was like, where are these emotions coming from? And I don't know if you're like this now that you've had some of your experiences where you just let them come out. Like you just got to let them flow, you don't know why they're coming to the surface. Sometimes they just come out of nowhere. And so she was like, okay, she could see what was happening. And she's known me long enough now. I mean, probably 20 years. And she's like, I just need you to close your eyes. And I like gratefully closed my eyes because I'm like, something's going to happen here. And she's just talking me through something. And we're in a coffee shop. I mean, it is loud. There's clanking. There's, all of these things. And she just put her hand on my hand and she goes, what are you feeling right now? And I just said, I'm tired. And she's like, oh, okay, I need you to listen to that. And so literally that next weekend, things kind of changed in my schedule where I had a weekend off and I was like, this is amazing. I need to schedule time off. And, I was getting on a plane a couple weeks later. I was going to a big leadership meeting. We all went out. Again, I thought I was dehydrated and I'm sitting in a management meeting and we're being presented to. I'm not even up there presenting. Right. And I just felt my body like swaying. And I was like, well, that's weird. And as you're processing what's happened to you, and you might have had the same experience when you were kind of going through yours, you're like, okay, that's not normal. And I look at my watch because it just alerted me that my heart rate is in the danger zone. And that said 115 to 124, I think it was. And my heart rate was at 158. And I'm sitting down and I was like, what is happening?
That's not good.
That's not good, right? I'm a healthy 45-year-old. I should not have 158 resting, right?
Right.
So I grab my water and I grab my phone, and I have two phones. I'm one of those nerds that like keeps church and state separate between my personal life and my, work life. So I have the two phones, but I grab my personal phone, which I could tell nobody in the meeting that I was on the floor in the bathroom and I couldn't stand up. I literally every time, because I went to the counter and I just was like, maybe I need to just splash water on my face. And as I was about to do that, like my whole vision just went black, like I was going to faint. And I was like, okay, there's nothing but concrete all around me. I'm in luckily a brand new building. So the bathroom was really nice, but I just was like, what is happening? And I'm like, okay, what would my brother do? Cause my brother's practically a shaman. He's very meditative and his energy work. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to breathe, pretend I'm meditating, and finally somebody walked into the room and they were like, oh man, they knew me. And they were like, oh my gosh, what is happening to you? And I'm like, I don't know. And luckily she was a former nurse and she's like, we got to get you off the floor. They bring me into the cafeteria, the EMTs come, they basically said, because they were like, oh, well, we'll try this. This is probably going to bring you down. We'll do this. This will probably, and nothing's working and everything, all the signs are, worse than what they thought. So got in an ambulance, rode to Northwestern. And for 10 hours, I had nothing but a crazy racing heart. My blood pressure was through the roof. And then they, based on like the meds that I'm on, they were concerned that because I had flown the night before, it might be a blood clot. And so, because I was feeling it right in the middle of my chest, not my heart. And I was like, I don't know why I'm going, like, that's not good.
That's not good.
So I said, well, what are we doing here? And they said, well, we're going to rule out all the scary stuff. And I was like, okay, thank you, but literally it was kind of ended a little bit like your situation did, where it was like, okay, well, we ruled out all the scary stuff. We don't know what happened, but go home, get some rest. And if it happens again, come back to the emergency room. And I was like, what? That's it? And they're like, well, do the things that you're supposed to do. Get more exercise, eat better, drink more water. And I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. Okay. So the one question I immediately came to mind, you're in this meeting, you're in the corporate environment.
Yep.
So it's all about, you have to present this united front and everything has to be perfect. So you were possibly dying and you excused yourself politely
and ran out of the room.
And ran out of the room without telling anybody. And so if something was seriously wrong, we wouldn't be on this podcast right now.
Correct. And
so did you look at that? Have you evaluated that of like, wow, I was so into looking good and not causing any upset around anything, even though I may be dying.
Yeah. No, my first thought was apologize to those in the room when you get back for disrupting the conversation and the flow. Not like, are you okay? Yeah, it was surreal. And I think it until you get into that position where you're like, what is happening? You really start to process like, okay, something's not right. I don't know what's wrong. I'm not a doctor, but this doesn't feel good in my body. I've had panic attacks and I've had anxiety in the past. I don't have it so much now, but it certainly didn't feel like that. And even when I did have panic attacks, my heart rate wasn't at 158,
Right.
So I think in taking a step back, I was like, okay, looking at the signs over the last, 10 months, talking to Nadine, and she said, you said it, you're tired, rest, and I was like, I can't do that. I have this imaginary timeline that I'm putting together that I want everything to happen.
The universe. So, you dodged a bullet, which is amazing, but I want to go back to that. I mean, you just glossed over that. I want you to really look at that, how incredible corporate is or are looking good in that you possibly thought you might be dying or you had a very serious medical situation and you politely excused yourself to not interrupt the meeting and went to the bathroom and possibly
could have died in a bathroom, Rob.
Imagine, I know, I don't think I'd want to die in a bathroom, but it was a nice bathroom because it was corporate. So, it was high end. Really, I saw the beautiful, I can just see the fixtures.
Oh, yeah, it was beautiful.
But have you thought of that? Like, is that, like, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
I mean, is it the fact of that you thought by disrupting it would affect your job and the way that the company saw you, or was it you looking good and not being vulnerable? What do you think it was?
I felt like maybe I was being dramatic because I really wasn't processing what was happening. Because when you're in the moment, you're like, well, that's crazy. Your heart rate's crazy. Like you're not really thinking like, oh my gosh, I could die. I was more thinking like, how do I get more water? What could happen?
Right.
Who should I call? Like, how does this work? Like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to calm down a bit and then I can make decisions. I will say to the credit of my team and my leadership, I mean, once the word got out that something was going on, my highest leaders came out and they were helping make decisions. They had my dad on the phone within minutes. And luckily my parents live in Chicago. So my dad and his wife came down and, we were able to they kept me company at Northwestern. I mean, it's a huge emergency room, but I think overall, like they looked at me as a person. I mean, they were checking in on me, like calling my dad, I wasn't worried about how I looked as much as I was worried about like, am I being dramatic or am like, what is happening? And is this okay? Or am I just hungover or am I, like, what does that look like? But what's weird is that I didn't go to, is this going to affect my job? one of my first thoughts, really, because I have 2 dogs at home. They're all over my Insta. I have Emmy, Lou, and Carter. They're Cavalier King Charles, and they're just adorable, if I do say so myself. But I kept thinking, like, if mommy doesn't come home, what are they going to think? And I just, like, that's why I was crying, like, that's why I was worried and nervous, more about them and, like, not as much about me and what's going on in my body, which is weird, right? That your brain, you went to, like, what, I'd be leaving all this stuff to my daughter. What would my daughter think? Would this be the end for her? Like, we don't think about ourselves in that moment. You think about all the other things, right? And you weren't thinking about stuff really inherently. I wasn't thinking about my stuff. I was thinking about the other lives that it would impact.
That's the one thing I think is significant, and especially when you do the move and the organizing, is that I've had a few near-death experiences, and I will tell you, and other people that have been guests on this show and other people that I know, everybody that I know, I love your dog. Is that your dog? It's so cute. I love it. I'm leaving that in. I normally take that out. I love it. It's so great.
They're both snoring.
That's funny. You're not that boring. Okay. So no one ever said, man, I'm on my deathbed. I'm dying. I could die any moment. I sure wish I would have got a better car, a better house. I sure wish I would have had a bigger TV. All we ever cared about, and this is a universal conversation, is I wish I would have spent more time with. I wish I would have had more conversations with. It's all about that human connection.
Absolutely.
That's all it's about. And and I invite anybody that's listening right now to learn from people that have had near-death experiences to really get your life in balance and in check. Nothing is more important than the people in your life. And that's what's really important, is to only allow people in your life that are not causing you friction, but they're worthy of being in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think looking at it from your current ecosystem and like your community and those people that are going to lift you up are the same people that you're going to want to lift up when they're in that same position. Having been there, I certainly know how scary it is. We talked to my boyfriend got in a car accident a couple weeks ago, coming home from my house, no less. Just mortified that, he's still shaken up about it. Like his car spun out, he hydroplaned. It wasn't even like somebody else hit him, so I think like that moment inherently, like we have connections to our souls. And if you surround yourself with the right people, and that's what I looked at sometimes with my moves, like, how am I going to make friends? Because it's hard to make friends as an adult, You
walk up and say, hey, Mariette, like, do you want to be my friend?
Yeah.
I know, right? Hey, exactly. It is. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah. No, it's a thing. Like, that soul crushing loneliness that you feel if you're new somewhere, like that's a big thing. So like those people, it doesn't feel like they're your world until that's all your world. And that's all you can think about,
Right. And speaking of your boyfriend, how's he doing?
He's good. He is good. Good.
Now, did he have his life changed in a split second? Was that a big, 2x4 over the forehead from the universe? Did he reevaluate? Has he reevaluated his life and seen what he's doing now?
I think he has. We haven't gotten that deep on his feelings. I think he's still reliving the moment a little bit because he hydroplaned and hit the front of his car, and then it spun him 180 and he hit the back of his car too. So he said that in that moment when he was spinning, it was just dead silence until he heard the big crash. And I could relate to that because that's kind of how I felt in the bathroom on the floor. Like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Like that deafening silence when you're like, okay, this could be it. How am I going to spend my last moments?
Yeah. One of the things that I always talk about, whether it's on stage or podcast, whatever, is that you need to live every single day like you want to be alive. Like it's so important. To the actions and the decisions that you make are so important. And at any moment, your life can change. So it's like, don't wait for things to happen, make things happen.
Yeah.
And, it happens all the time. I will tell you, nothing happened. However, we're in San Diego, and this really shook me. man, I have a 23-year-old daughter who's really doing really good. She's gone through so much, and I'm really have a new level and a closeness with her in our relationship. I have an incredible wife. I have a incredible 6-pound Chihuahua named Stella that I love so much. I have the most incredible circle of a tribe of the dearest friends that would be like, they're the ride or dies.
Yep.
And it's more than 5. And my grandma always said, if you have more than, 3 friends when you're an adult, you're doing great. And I have more than that. I feel so blessed. I'm with Podopolo. I'm a podcaster and I'm making a difference in the world. And I want to live a long time. I work really hard to do that. I fought to do that. So we're driving down, and other people don't understand that. And they don't live their life and thinking of other people's consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So we're driving. It was like 4:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday. And man, I'm still shaken by this. We're driving in the freeway in Mission Valley in San Diego. Semi-traffic, not a lot. There was an exit ramp that we were coming up on. There was a little bit of a jam. And there was a silver, I'll never forget what this thing looked like. It was a silver and black Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, and it was coming up really fast behind me. There was no one in the way of it, and it was flying up. I mean, it had to have been going at least 100 miles an hour. I was probably going 50 miles an hour because the traffic was a little bit slow because it was in the valley and there was shopping and stuff like that, and by the hotels. And I could see them coming up so fast. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm in this lane. My turn signal's on. I'm going to move over. And he or she is coming up incredibly fast. And it got closer and closer and closer. And I'm like, they're not stopping. Like he was back before. And I said, there's no way he could stop. So there's a car next to me. And I'm like, oh my God. And I looked over and the car was next to me. And I was about ready to say, I love you all, because I thought we were going to die. And at that moment, I looked over and there was no car there. We moved over into the other lane, and that G-Wagon never moved out of the lane and just never slowed down, probably passed us 100-something miles an hour. And my friend Shelly was in the car and my wife Tanya, and they saw that thing go by. It was almost like it was right in our car. And it actually moved the car because of how close it was. You could feel. I'm surprised he didn't take the mirror off.
Holy
he
cow.
just kept going. And I'm like, I've never even heard of that before.
Just careless disregard for life.
I don't know how we would have survived if something hit us going that fast. I just don't know. Right. I mean, I just don't know. But what was amazing about that was that I felt, I was shook by it. But people say, you think I was talking, what anything bad happened on your trip? And I go, actually, no, that wasn't bad. I go, we had a miracle happen. We were blessed. We had this protective bubble because I looked over and I saw a car next to me and I'm like, I can't move. I took a deep breath in a split second and it wasn't even prepared for impact. It was right by us.
Right.
And the cars went like that. And it was like, and there was an opening, just like all this opening. And it's funny because that happened when me and my wife were in a car, in May. We had a blowout of our tire and in the rear tire on the freeway. And there was all this traffic and stuff. And the tire blew out. I lost control of the car. We're going, and I was driving 70 miles an hour. Maybe a little faster. And maybe a little faster. And the tire blew out and we lost control of the car. And there's all these cars and it's like the seas parted and we ended up in a real safe spot. And then right after we were there, this giant car carrier comes flying up behind us in the lane. And I'm like, so you see those things and it makes you like really ponder your life and be so grateful. Because I've had so many near misses. And, even though you had nothing, you don't know what happened to you and your medical, it's still something that shook you.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And
I still haven't had a single drop of alcohol. I have changed my diet, my routine. I'm exercising in the morning. I mean, it was enough, right?
Yeah.
It was enough.
And it's interesting because now with podcasting, I think it's such a beautiful thing that other people can hear these stories
Oh yeah.
and they can learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people go through life like, I got 50 more years to go.
Right. Well, sometimes they have an experience like that and they go the opposite way. You know, I have a girlfriend that she's a recovering alcoholic. She has since gotten sober, I think almost 3 years now. She's an amazing,
awesome.
Strong human being. But she had a heart attack. She actually had a real live heart attack. And I texted her when all this was going down and I was like, what did it feel like? Tell me what to look for. Like, this is where I'm at. But she went the opposite way. She actually was like, well, I survived one. Let's, go balls to the walls now. Like, I mean, literally, like she went complete opposite instead of like her encouragement to me was, okay, like listen to them and make some changes, right? Don't do what I did. And luckily she's still here to tell the story. But I mean, you just never know when your ticket's up. So
you never know. And I appreciate the borrowed time that I have. And I think you now feel that you have borrowed time. And I'm sure your boyfriend feels that way. And I think it's important in that when you have those moments that you really appreciate them and know that you can make a difference.
Yeah.
And really contribute. I look at it this way. The different ways that I've almost died and the circumstances, I'm like, I don't know what it is, but there's a reason I'm here.
Yep.
So I'm just going to figure out how that is. And so I've done that and, being a catalyst for change for people and being motivational and inspirational and transformational. I guess that's what I should be doing because I'm so humbled and blessed and just really moved that I'm still here based on the experiences that I've had.
But you also said something very key. You said you have to want to live. Like that, a lot of people give up. And, I've had several cousins that have committed suicide. There's that, getting to live versus needing to live, right? So wanting to live every day and making those choices so you can experience all the magic like that. This journey isn't a destination. Like this is a journey and the magic happens along the way. And if you don't stop and really appreciate that at some point, it is going to look dim. Like we could listen to all the negative between the news and the, like what we're hearing and all the pandemic stuff. I mean, if you really want to have a negative mindset, all that stuff is going to bring you down. But if you want to live and you want to see the silver lining and you want to see the good in people, you'll see it. You just have to want to.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to live every day like you want to be alive. And, I try so hard to not look at any of the news because I just want to stay in my bliss bubble. Because if I can't change what's happening, I really don't want to get stressed out about it. I just want to live my best life and be as present and enjoy and have other people enjoy my presence and to just make a difference. That's really want to do. And,
open to receiving that, Yeah,
absolutely. And love life. Well, I'm so glad that you're okay.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that we cross paths. It's wonderful with technology and how the universe works. And it's just beautiful. I really am thrilled that you took the time out to be on the show today. Mariette, it just really, I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I've enjoyed getting to know you. I know this isn't going to be the last conversation we have because I consider you a friend now. So thank you for having me.
I'm a friend. Look at that. Oh, I'm touched. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Hey, if you want to reach Mariette, you can reach her at mariette'sonthemove and .com. So mariette'sonthemove.com, not the but it's mariette'sonthemove.com. And you can find out about moving and finances and life coaching and all kinds of cool stuff. And her podcast will be out very, very soon. And you can look for it. I probably will add the link in the show notes. I'll go back and do that for you since we're friends.
I think the trailer's up on Podopolo right now. So
I know.
It'll be launching January 1st.
I love it. Well, I want to thank you, Mariette, for being on the show, and thank you so much for your support and taking the time out of your busy and precious day to listen. I so appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me, along with my very special guests, to touch your heart, move your soul, and inspire you to live a life of transformation. I'm Rob Actis. Until next time.
This is Life Transformation Radio. Download complete.